Hi, it's Miss Marsden. I'm going to take you through a lesson today on global warming. So, same things as last few weeks, just make sure your phone's in a different room, make sure you don't have any distractions in the room that you're in, and obviously you can rewind the video if you need to, if you don't understand anything. So, first task, same thing as the last few weeks. So, you've got a fluency test, you've got your hypotheses at the top of the page, and there's some clues on the board as there have been for the last few weeks. So have a go at filling it in. Again, don't worry about drawing the equipment, that's absolutely fine. But if you're still struggling with these, please send your attempt to your teacher and they'll give you some feedback on it. We can't help you if we don't know where you're at with it, so please do send it to your teachers so they can see it, they can check it, they can help you. So pause the video for about 10 minutes to have a go at that fluency test, and then the mark schemes in the teacher booklet so that you can mark and improve your work. So today's lesson is going to be on the human impact on ecosystems. So there's a bit of an overlap with the topic that you've just covered about climate change and global warming. So some of it you already know, so you can use it as revision for the last topic. And what I want us to be able to do by the end of this lesson is to be able to describe and explain some ways that humans impact ecosystems on the planet. Want us to be able to evaluate data linking greenhouse gases and global warming. And then we need to be able to describe some consequences of global warming. Again, you might already be able to do that because we have covered it in the chemistry topic we've just done. So I'm going to go through the do now tasks separately. If you're in set 1 or 2, you should have the foundation booklet open and your do now task looks like this. If you're in set 1, just skip this part, fast forward it to the next slide because I'll talk about the higher question. So the foundation question, it's just a maths question and it's asking you to understand the data that's been given to you in the table. So for the first question, basically all it's asking you to do is asking you to add together all of the data in the passed out column. And then the second question, you need to do the passed out column, take away the taken in column, and it'll leave you with a smaller number, but it'll leave you with your answer. I'm going to go through the mark schemes to these on the next slide. So again, if you've just done this foundation question, fast forward past the higher question and just go straight to the mark scheme. Just pause it there. So if you're doing the higher booklet, if you're in either top set, you've got a question which looks like this. It's a 6-mark question and you've got to write a long answer question. So that's the difference between a higher and a foundation paper. You do often have to do longer questions like this. So I've given you 4 sentence starters and basically you've got 3 arrows on there. So just describe what the arrows are showing you using what you learnt last lesson about the carbon cycle. So I'll do the first one. So combustion is where, so that's looking at the factory. Fossil fuels are burnt and carbon dioxide is released into the environment. So that's me describing what combustion is, easy peasy. You need to do the same thing for carbon photosynthesis and respiration. And then you just need to do a calculation for the last sentence. So you need to say the overall effect is, you just do out, which is combustion and respiration, take away in, which is photosynthesis. Again, I'm going to go through the mark scheme on the next slide. So all you need to do is pause the video for as long as you need to answer this question, and then fast forward to the slide where I'm talking about the mark scheme. This is the mark scheme for the foundation. You should have got 70 for the first one. So all you need to do is just add together all of those figures to get 70. If you showed you're working out, but you didn't get the right answer, you'd still get 1 mark. And then part 2, you just needed to do 70 take away 64. Again, if you wrote 70 take away 64, but you came up with the wrong answer, you'd still get 1 mark. And then the last part was just a circle box. You should have circled photosynthesis. Mark scheme for the 6-mark questions there. In a different coloured pen, all you need to do is, like I said, I've given you a lot of the clues there. So where I said photosynthesis is, you should have said it's plants absorbing carbon dioxide. Respiration, giving out carbon dioxide. Combustion, giving out carbon dioxide. from burning fossil fuels, and then you just need to do that calculation at the end. So just pause it there so you can take time to consider where these points have come into your answer. If they haven't, add them, and you know for next time that's how simple it needs to be. A 6-mark question doesn't need to be really, really, really long. It just needs to have these few key points in there as succinct as possible. So what we didn't talk about really as part of the last topic is the human population. So you've got a graph going from the year 1050 to 2017. So what you can see is that actually the human population was actually quite low until relatively recently. So we're looking at about 1850 where it started to exponentially increase. And we know that that's because of the Industrial Revolution. We know it's because we've got increased medicine and better sanitation, better food production. And what that's meant is the population has now rapidly replicated up until increased above 7 billion, which is absolutely massive compared to this time in 1750, for example. But with an increase in population, we've got obviously more people on the same space on this planet, so there's increased demand for space, food, transport, and what that means is the waste that we are producing, be that rubbish, carbon dioxide emissions, sulfur dioxide emissions, it's all increasing. We know from the last topic that greenhouse gas levels are rising because of increased use of fossil fuels. We're driving more cars, we're using more electricity, we're using more fossil fuels, there's more carbon dioxide being released. And we also considered some other reasons, because carbon dioxide is not the only greenhouse gas we need to know. We need to talk about methane as well. So deforestation obviously means less photosynthesis, less carbon dioxide being removed. We're going to talk about something called peat bogs, which is additional to what you know from chemistry. We know that more cows means more methane, and more rice means more methane as well. Methane is also a greenhouse gas, so you need to consider that when you're talking about why greenhouse gas levels are rising. So what is a peat bog? It's partially rotted plants. It looks like soil, and it only forms in boggy areas, so areas where it's really moist, it's muddy, where there's a lack of oxygen and really acidic conditions that makes it hard for bacteria, microbes to break it down. And what peat is it's basically just a store of carbon. Fossil fuels, like we said, are also a store of carbon. So what peat is used for, it's used for a fuel. You can dry it out, you can use it as a fuel, you can burn it, and obviously the same as fossil fuels, that'll release that locked up carbon into the environment as carbon dioxide. So we talked about in our Do Now questions the fact that carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere by respiration and combustion, and it's removed by photosynthesis. So the general consensus by scientists is that global warming is happening because there's more carbon dioxide and methane in the atmosphere. Why is that? Like I said, deforestation, if you think about it, trees photosynthesize. Photosynthesis removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So if you remove the trees, you remove the photosynthesis, so there's less carbon dioxide being absorbed, and there's more of it in the atmosphere. Why do we cut down large areas of forest? So for raising cattle, for growing crops, for growing biofuel as well, because we're running out of fossil fuels. So in your booklet, just like I've just done for deforestation, you've got pictures. And what I want you to do for each of those activities, I want you to tell me how the land, air, or water is affected. For example, if you've got more rice fields, you're using more water. You're using more land. You might need to cut down areas of forest for that. So pause the video for as long as you need to, like rewind it to my example I've just done. But you have 15 minutes and then we'll go through the answers. So pause it for 15 minutes and then we'll go through the answers. So the first one's a picture of a quarry, and effectively if you're digging a big hole in the ground then you're destroying habitats for plants and animals. So make sure you're using the keywords from this topic, talk about habitats and refer to the living things which are being impacted to the plants and the animals. Link it to carbon dioxide as well, because obviously they're using heavy machinery, lots of fossil fuels being used. So destroying peat bogs that we just talked about, they're a carbon store. So when you burn them, it releases carbon dioxide. But again, you need to refer to biology, refer to the living things. So it's the habitats of the animals which would otherwise live there. We talked about deforestation, so less carbon dioxide, so we're linking it to the greenhouse gas. It contributes to greenhouse gas levels, but it destroys habitats. That's the difference between this chemistry and biology topic. You have to talk about how the living things are impacted. So make sure you improve your answers there. You might want to have another go, so pause it for another 15 minutes. So this one's a little bit more difficult. Basically, it's just removing another way of removing trees. So they burn areas of forest. So not only are you removing the trees, so there's less photosynthesis, there's combustion, so you're producing carbon dioxide. Again, link it to habitat, so it's causing habitat destruction. In waste, you need space to do that, be it on a field or where a forest used to be, for example. It's destroying habitat, releases toxic chemicals and greenhouse gases, specifically methane, as it decays. So this is not new information to you if you've done the chemistry lessons we did a couple of weeks ago. So the potential consequences of climate change, what I'd like you to do is just use the picture to make a list of the potential consequences of climate change. For example, less snow and ice. You might want to link those to what the potential problems caused by that will be. So if there's less snow and ice, the ice is melting. And what will that do to the sea level? It'll cause it to rise. Again, this is not new information, it's just revision of what you did in the chemistry topic. So linking it to living things, it can cause change in migration of animals, warmer oceans, flowing permafrost, that's basically just frost which would normally exist all year, and that's what I just said, it would cause rising sea levels. Droughts, crop failure, so there's a food shortage. Again, we're always linking it to living things, so wildfires can damage crops, but it also damages habitats. And then we need to think about the effect on plant life cycle. So if you think about, for example, a daffodil usually comes out in about April. If it's warmer in January, then they'll come out at that time. But insects might rely on them for food or pollination, for example. So that might affect that life cycle. So that's pretty much all the information you need to know about this topic. So in the back of your booklets, you've got some extension questions. The extension questions are completely optional. If you need any feedback on them, send them to your teacher. But what I would recommend doing before is using the mark schemes which are in folder and improving them yourself, because that'll help you learn more than your teacher just telling you what the answer is, okay? So please do complete them. Please do have a go. Mark them yourself and then send your marked questions back to your teacher so you can get some feedback from there.